Hello everyone, welcome back to Movie Facts. This time the film facts will recap the storyline of the 1973 film entitled The Exorcist. This film is based on a novel by William Peter Blatty, which was released in 1971. Tells the story of a little girl named Regan who suddenly acts strangely like a possessed person. Regan's mother named Krish then took her child to the hospital, but the doctor who examined him was unable to find out what disease Regan was experiencing. What really happened to Regan, and can he recover from his strange illness? Let's review the storyline of this film. We remind all of you what we are going to say. This is a movie spoiler for those of you who don't have a problem with spoilers as usual. Use the handset and hold the bolster, and let's start the story. At the beginning of the film we are shown a man who works as a priest named Lancaster Merrin. He is here digging an ancient artifact in the Nineveh area of Iraq. In excavating this artifact, Pastor Merrin then found an ancient statue of the devil Pazuzu. The Pazuzu devil is one of the most terrifying demons in Babylonian mythology. This demon is described as having a body like a man but having wings and a head like a lion and a tail like a scorpion. In the past, before retiring as a priest, it turned out that Father Merrin had defeated the demon Pazuzu, who at that time possessed a woman, and after losing to Pastor Merrin, it turned out that the demon intended to take revenge on Pastor Merrin. Elsewhere it is shown there is a woman named Chris McNeil who is a very famous artist. She is also a single parent who has a daughter named Regan. Because of his busy life, Chris had to always leave his daughter alone at home. But here Chris then hired a nanny and also two maids to accompany his daughter so she wouldn't be lonely. One day when Chris was on vacation, he accompanied his son to play in the basement of his house. While playing chess, he found a Ouija board in the basement of his house. Chris, who was curious about the Ouija board, then asked Regan whose board this game actually belonged to. Regan then answered his mother that the Ouija board was his, which he found in the basement cupboard of their house. Regan here then told his mother that he often played the Ouija board with an invisible creature, which he named Captain Howdy. Captain Howdy is a gentle creature who accompanies Regan's life, who is always lonely. Even though we see Regan who seems happy, but in fact his life is very lonely because his mother is busy and divorced. This situation made Regan feel sad and lonely, until this Pazuzu demon came through the Ouija board, who approached Regan as if he was his friend, named Captain Howdy. Regan, who is an atheist, makes himself so easy to be used by this subtle creature. So that creature is so easy to lie to Regan and also outwit him. One night when Chris was sleeping, he woke up hearing the sound of his home phone ringing. He then saw his son Regan, who was sleeping beside him. Chris then asked Regan why he could sleep in this room. Hearing his mother's question, Regan then told him that his bed was always moving on its own and that situation made him unable to sleep well. Chris then thought that maybe his son was just hallucinating. The next day, Regan was seen and then taken by his mother to the hospital for examination. Here we can see that Regan's body has been slowly taken by the demon Pazuzu, who claims to be Captain Howdy. Regan looks like he is humming a song and also says rudely to the doctor who is examining him. Chris is then told by the doctor that this Regan has a nervous disorder that is usually experienced by children his age. The doctor here also explained that Regan seemed to be stressed with the situation he had been going through. Hearing this doctor's words, Chris couldn't believe it and then invited Regan to go home. In the evening, Chris was seen having a party at his house, and then he was surprised by Regan's very strange behavior. Chris, who was chatting with his friends, was then visited by Regan, who said rudely and urinated in the party room. Seeing this incident, Chaz felt embarrassed and then apologized to his friends who came to the party. He then invited Regan to go to his room. Arriving at Chris' room, then bathing Regan and changing his clothes, Regan then asked his mother what had really happened to him, because everything Regan had done was not what he wanted. After asking Regan to rest, Chris then left Regan's room. But when he got to the stairs, Chris heard a very hysterical scream from Regan. He then rushed back to his son's room. Arriving at Regan's room, Chris was surprised to find that his son's bed moved by itself. He then climbed into his son's bed and tried to calm Regan, who was scared. The morning came. It was seen that Regan was taken back to the hospital for a re-examination. While undergoing this examination, Regan looked so rebellious that he spat on the doctor and also the nurse who was trying to calm him down. After the examination was completed, the doctor named Klein then said to Chris that Regan had nerve damage in his brain. He advised Chris to do a re-examination of his son's brain. When undergoing the brain examination procedure, Regan was seen in so much pain throughout the examination procedure. After the completion of the Dr. Klein then saw the results of Regan's brain scan, which turned out to be no abnormality in Regan's brain. A few moments later, Regan was then allowed to go home to rest. While at his house, Regan's condition did not improve, but it got worse and was also worrying. Seeing the condition of his son, Chris then called Dr. Klein to come to his house. Dr. Klein, who got news from Church, then rushed to Chris's house to see Regan's condition, which, according to Chris, was getting worse. Long story short, Dr. Klein then arrived at Chris's house. He was then shocked to find that Regan had very strange convulsions. It was seen that Regan made strange movements on his bed by shouting and uttering a lot of harsh words. Knowing Regan's strange condition, Dr. Klein then injected Regan with a sedative so he could stop moving again. He then advised Chris to do a re-examination of his son's brain. Chris, who heard the words of the doctors, was then angry because they still thought that this Regan had damage to the nerves of his brain. He then explained that Regan had experienced a change in personality and was not like the Regan he used to know. After a long debate and seeing Regan's condition, which was getting more and more worrying, Chris then agreed to re-examine the condition of his son's brain. After the examination procedure was completed, it turned out that Regan's brain had no problems and his condition was also running normally as usual. After getting the results of his son's examination, Chris then went home. When he got home, he checked the condition of Regan, who was in his room. When he got to his son's room, Chris saw that the window of Regan's room was open and the air in his son's room became very cold. Chris then rushed to close the window of his son's room. He then thought why the caregivers left Regan alone in his room with the window open. A few moments later, Regan's nanny named Sharon was seen coming to Chris's house. Chris then asked Sharon why he had the heart to leave Regan alone in his room with the window open. Sharon, who heard his employer's question, then explained that he had gone for a while and asked Burr Denning to accompany Regan in her room. Long story short, they later found out that Burr Denning had died falling from the stairs near Chris's house. They looked so sad over the death of this Burr Denning. When they were sad, they were all then shocked to see Regan's condition coming out of the room by walking upside down, and also a mouth that was bleeding a lot. After this strange incident that happened to his son, Chris drove and brought a psychiatrist to his house hoping to find out the real situation with his son. Regan was then hypnotized by the psychiatrist and asked about who Captain Howdy was. Regan, who seemed unconscious, then attacked the psychiatrist who was hypnotizing him. Elsewhere, it is shown that a detective named William is investigating the case of the death of Burr Denning. Yesterday, he is seen meeting a priest and also a psychiatrist named Priest Demon. William is here asking Pastor Demon to help him uncover the death from yesterday's Burr Denning, because he felt yesterday's Burr Denning's death seemed odd considering his head was twisted 180 degrees just from falling down a ladder. William is here speculating that someone killed Burr Dennings before he fell down the stairs near Chris's house. Regan's condition was getting worse and could not be controlled, forcing the doctors who treated her to tie Regan's body to the hospital bed. She was then quarantined and also supervised by a lot of doctors. Dr. Klein and the other doctors seemed to give up considering Ren's condition was getting worse, and the cause of his pain was not found. Dr. Klein then said to Chris to ask the priest for help because it seems Regan has been possessed by a demon or spirit. Dr. Klein here then explained to Chris that it could be that Regan was possessed by a demon or spirit, considering that he and his child are atheists, so they will be easily possessed by demons because they don't have faith. Elsewhere, it is shown that William then came to the place where Burr Denning fell and started an investigation into the death of Burr Dennings. He then discovered a new fact that before Burr Denning fell, he was in Regan's room. After doing an inspection on the stairs near Chris Williams' house, then he came to Chris' house and asked what he concluded, but William he was not sure what he concluded. After William left, Chris was seen and then startled by a loud noise coming from inside Regan's room. He then ran and rushed to check on his son's condition. Arriving in Regan's room, he saw the items in his son's room flew here and there by themselves. He also saw Regan's condition, which was very strange and also disgusting. Here you can see that Regan's head is able to rotate 180 degrees backwards because it has been possessed by the Pazuzu demon who has completely mastered Regan's body. Long story short, Chris then met Pastor Demon and told him about his son's very strange condition. He then asked Pastor Demon to do an exorcism for his son. Hearing Chris's request, Pastor Demon seemed to refuse it because the exorcism ritual had a very high risk. But after hearing Chris' complaints, he finally wanted to exorcise his son. Before carrying out the exorcism procession, Pastor Demon then collected evidence first in order to get permission from the church. He then came to Chris' house to see Regan's real condition. After entering Regan's room, Pastor Demon then asked the devil who had possessed Regan. Here Regan then told him about Pastor Demon's mother who recently died. Even though Pastor Demon never spoke to anyone about his recently deceased mother. A few moments later, Pastor Demon said goodbye to Chris to go home. Here Chris then told Pastor Demon that Regan had actually killed Bert Dennings yesterday. Long story short, after getting the evidence needed, Pastor Demon then asked permission to the church to immediately carry out the exorcism ritual. Hearing this explanation from Pastor Demon, the church then allowed Pastor Demon to perform the ritual of exorcism against Regan. Here the church also appointed Pastor Marin to help Pastor Demon perform this exorcism. Father Marin, who had faced the demon Pazuzu and also defeated him, then agreed to the church's request to help carry out the exorcism ritual that would be carried out by Pastor Demon earlier. A few moments later the two of them then came to Chris's house and prepared to do an exorcism against the Pazuzu demon who had possessed Regan. They then read prayers and also poured holy water on Regan, who was starting to get excited. The exorcism ritual that went on for so long that it made Pastor Demon exhausted and left Pastor Marin to do the ritual alone. Pastor Marin then continued the ritual alone for fear that something would happen to Pastor Demon, whose faith was slightly shaken due to the seduction of the demon who possessed Regan. Long story short, Pastor Demon then came to Regan's room and he was here seeing that Pastor Marin had died of a heart attack. He was then annoyed and then attacked Regan's body and asked the demon to only possess his body so that Regan would recover. A few moments later the demon then moved and entered the body of the demon priest. Before his consciousness disappeared, the demon priest then sacrificed himself by jumping out the window, which made him die. After the terrible and touching incident, Regan recovered and was healthy again thanks to the sacrifice of Pastor Demon. Chris and Regan then moved to Europe to live their new life and the film ended. Although this film has been released more than a decade ago, but in our opinion this film is still very worth watching in 2021. This film does not have a jump scare and also a ghost with a scary form, but this film has been the best horror film in the past. First show. Overall we give a rating of 7/10 from the storyline that is presented throughout this film. Thank you for all of you who have listened to the storyline of this film from beginning to end. For all of you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell until we meet again in the next video.